I do not sleep well anymore. When I close my eyes, they do not let me rest. Their eyes are always waiting, drifting in the dark like pale moons, and their lips whisper against the inside of my skull. I hear them more clearly in the silence, when the city finally exhales and the lights outside my window go out one by one. That is when the room fills with them, familiar yet fragmented, like the pieces of a puzzle I can never quite finish. I keep them safe, of course. It would be wrong to call me careless. Each one has its place, its angle, its frame. Some stare back at me with that permanent half-expression, neither smile nor frown, but something suspended between life and death. Others are softer, gentler, almost begging to be touched. I do touch them sometimes. My fingers follow the contours the way one might trace the outline of a lover's face in the dark. It feels grounding, necessary. I started this diary because the voices inside are getting louder. They murmur at me from the walls, from the shadows, and sometimes I fear I will lose track of what belongs to me and what is not. Writing helps. It makes their noise quieter, almost respectful, like they know that when I put ink to paper, I am telling their story as well as mine. And if I do not tell it, then who will? I cannot say when the fascination began. Childhood memories blur, but there is one image that always lingers: the porcelain doll my mother kept in the living room cabinet. Its cheeks were painted a delicate pink, its lips frozen in an almost mocking curve. I remember staring at it for hours, pressing my face to the glass, studying how the shadows changed its expression. With the sun behind it, the doll looked angelic. With the moon, it looked haunted. But always it was beautiful. The doll is gone now. My mother smashed it during one of her storms. I cried for weeks, though not for her, never for her. I cried for the face. I suppose that was the first time I felt the hunger. That hunger never left me. It has only refined itself, grown patient and meticulous, like a connoisseur of rare wine. I do not rush. I select. I wait. A single face can hold me captive for months before I am ready to claim it. It is not about possession alone. It is about preservation, about keeping something eternal. People wither, skin collapses, eyes dull. But if I intervene at the right moment, I can stop time. I can hold their most perfect instant forever. That is what they never understand. They think I destroy when really I save. There is one I must write about tonight. She has been haunting me for weeks. I see her every morning on the bus, always in the same seat, always with her scarf pulled too tight around her neck, as if she knows something could slip beneath it at any moment. Her face is not extraordinary in the way magazines insist beauty must be. No, hers is a quieter perfection. The symmetry of her nose, the slight downturn of her lips that makes her seem forever contemplative, like she carries the weight of some secret grief. I have followed her, of course. I know where she buys her coffee, which building she disappears into at 8:45 sharp, and how she pauses each evening on the same corner to adjust her scarf again, tugging it higher as if against invisible hands. The more I learn of her movements, the deeper the hunger grows. I find myself sketching her in the margins of these pages, over and over, trying to capture the tilt of her brows, the subtle hollow beneath her cheekbones. But sketches are never enough. I tell myself I am waiting because she deserves patience, because the moment must be right. But in truth, I wait because I enjoy the anticipation almost as much as the culmination. Watching her, knowing she does not yet belong to me, makes the eventual possession all the sweeter. Sometimes I worry my collection will grow jealous. They do not speak in words, but in feelings, tightness in my chest, sudden bursts of heat in my temples, a prickling along my arms. They do not like it when I linger too long on one face. They whisper, "Remember us. Do not forget what you already have." I do not forget. I could never forget. Each of them is etched into me as surely as my own reflection. But obsession does not obey reason. It bends you, reshapes you, until the hunger eclipses everything else. Last night, I sat among them for hours. I lit no lamps, only candles, so that the flickering glow made their features shift and ripple. Some looked alive again for a heartbeat, breathing in the flame's rhythm. I whispered to them, told them about her, about the way she pulls her scarf, about the sound of her laugh that I overheard once when someone brushed past her too quickly. I swore to them she was different, that she would not replace them but join them, strengthen the family. The candlelight trembled, and I swear they approved. My hands are trembling, even as I write this. Not with fear. Fear is something I shed long ago. This trembling is anticipation, like the thrum of music before the curtain rises. I can almost feel her face beneath my palms already, cool and delicate, ready to be kept safe. And yet, I must wait. A careless man is a caught man, and I am not careless. I am methodical. I am patient. I am devoted. That is the difference between me and the others they whisper about on the news, those crude imitators who act on impulse and fury. They waste what could have been beautiful. They discard. They ruin. I will never ruin. Still, there are nights when the hunger burns so hot I can barely think. I pace the floor, nails digging crescents into my palms, and imagine simply walking up to her on the street, pressing my hand against her cheek, feeling the exact warmth of it before I take it away forever. The thought makes my teeth ache. But no, that is not how I do things. She deserves better. For now, I must content myself with writing, with sketches, with whispers to the ones already here. I wonder sometimes if anyone has ever looked at me the way I look at them, with reverence, with obsession, with hunger disguised as love. Probably not. People glance at me, of course. They notice nothing. My face is unremarkable, intentionally so. It is a mask I wear every day, bland enough to pass unseen, malleable enough to blend into crowds. They will never suspect. They will never know. But in these pages, I can be honest. I love them. I love them all, in ways the world would never understand. And soon she will join us. I can almost hear her already, whispering in the dark. They were restless again last night. I tried to quiet them, whispering the same reassurances I always do, but it did not help. The room seemed to swell with their discontent, every face watching me with that fixed intensity, as if waiting for me to prove myself. I paced until my legs ached, lit more candles, even played a record I know they used to like. Nothing satisfied them. It was only when I took her sketch from the drawer, the newest one, the one where I captured her eyes half closed, glancing sideways as if caught between suspicion and surrender, that the whispers subsided. I set the drawing upright on the desk and leaned it against the ink bottle so they could all see her. After that, the air grew still again. I think they wanted to be sure she exists, that she is not just some fantasy of mine, an imagined face I've conjured to distract myself. They wanted proof, and I gave it to them. I told them she is real, that she breathes the same stale bus air as the rest of us every morning, that she drinks her bitter coffee with too much sugar, that she drifts through her days unaware of what waits in the corners of her life. I told them I would bring her to them soon. That promise quieted them, but promises are dangerous things. They have weight. They demand fulfillment. The hunger is sharper now, more insistent. When I follow her in the evenings, I feel it humming in my bones, urging me to step closer, to reach out. But I hold myself back because I know the moment must be perfect. A flawed act leads to a flawed memory, and I cannot allow that. Last Thursday, she nearly saw me. It was raining, and the scarf she clings to so desperately had grown damp, clinging to her neck like a second skin. She stopped beneath a broken street lamp, fumbling with her umbrella, and for one dangerous instant she glanced over her shoulder. My pulse slammed against my ribs. Our eyes met. I know she couldn't have recognized me. To her, I am no one, a passerby, a shadow among 1,000 shadows. But the way her gaze lingered, just a fraction too long, told me something inside her stirred. Some instinct, faint but real, telling her that she was not alone. I nearly smiled. The hunger raged inside me that night. I returned to the room trembling, the echo of her gaze still burning through me. I set the candles around the collection, placed the sketch beside them again, and I whispered every detail of the encounter. They listened. I could feel it, the way the air shifted, the way the shadows seemed to lean closer. I told them it would not be much longer. And I meant it. There are rituals to maintain, preparations to complete. I find comfort in ritual. Each step must be exact, each tool sharpened, each cloth folded. Precision is a kind of worship. Without it, the preservation fails, and I cannot bear failure. Not when so much depends on getting it right. Tonight, I will prepare the space again. The air down there is always damp, always heavy with earth and stone, but I will line it with fresh cloths, burn incense to chase away the mold. I want the air to smell clean when she first enters, clean, almost holy. Perhaps she will be afraid at first. They always are. Fear is natural, but I will soothe her as I have soothed the others. I will explain to her that I am not taking, but keeping. That I am saving the most precious part of her from time, from decay, from the cruelty of a world that forgets too easily. And when she joins the collection, she will understand. I find myself imagining her already among them. Her face catching the flicker of candlelight, her eyes forever locked in that expression of wary thoughtfulness. She will belong here. She will make the others proud. But the moment must be chosen carefully. I have begun to map her movements with greater detail. Morning bus, 7:25, back row near the window. Office, small gray building, third floor. Lunch, always alone, always the same corner cafe, where she sits facing the window with her scarf draped over the chair. Evening return, 6:12, pausing at the same corner to adjust the scarf before turning down the quieter street toward home. I write it all here, page after page, not because I will forget, but because the act of recording it makes me feel closer to her. Each line of ink is a thread pulling her into me. Soon, those threads will form a net, and she will not slip through. Last night, I dreamed of her. She was sitting in my chair, the one by the desk where I write. The candles burned low, and the collection surrounded her. She smiled at them calmly, as though she already belonged. When I reached out to touch her cheek, she leaned into my hand, and her skin was cool, perfect, unchanging. I woke with tears on my face. I have not cried in years. The hunger is unbearable now. Even writing these words makes my hands shake. The pages blur as I imagine her here, with me, not just a shadow on a bus or a sketch in my book, but real, preserved, eternal. I know the time is near. Tomorrow, perhaps, or the next evening, when the rain returns and the streets empty earlier. They are waiting. I can feel it in the silence of the room, in the way the candle flames bend when I pass, as if leaning toward me, urging me onward. And I will not fail them. Not this time. The air tonight feels charged. It is the kind of air that tastes metallic on the tongue, heavy with something waiting to happen. I knew from the moment I stepped outside that it would not be an ordinary night. The streetlights seemed dimmer, the pavement darker, as though the city itself was conspiring to hide me in its folds. I followed her again, of course. By now the path of her life is etched into me so deeply I could walk it blindfolded. Yet tonight, every step felt different, as though the ground itself shifted in anticipation. She wore the scarf again. She always does. Tonight it was red, deep and vivid against the pale of her face. It caught the rain like a sponge, darkening until it looked almost bruised. I could not take my eyes off it. The bus ride was uneventful. She sat by the window, staring at her reflection in the glass, though I doubt she saw it. People rarely look at themselves with the kind of devotion I give them. Most glance away quickly, frightened by what stares back. But I study. I linger. I imagine sitting beside her, close enough that our arms brushed, close enough to feel the warmth of her skin through her coat. I imagined leaning in, whispering that she is not as invisible as she thinks, that someone sees her, truly sees her. I almost did it, but no. Patience. Always patience. When she left the office building this evening, she seemed different. Slower, distracted. She paused under the awning, staring out at the rain as though deciding whether to step into it at all. For a moment I wondered if she sensed me again, if some instinct had whispered in her ear that I was near. I kept my distance. I let her walk ahead, her umbrella trembling in her hands, the scarf trailing like a beacon in the storm. And then something happened that I cannot stop thinking about. She dropped her keys. It was nothing, really, a simple clatter on the wet pavement. But the sound struck me like a gunshot. She bent to pick them up, and for one dangerous second, I considered moving forward, lifting them first, placing them in her palm with a smile that would say, "See, I am kind. I am harmless." But my legs would not move. I stood frozen in the rain, watching her fumble, watching her straighten again, watching her hurry away without ever noticing me. I don't know why it shook me so deeply. Perhaps because the world gave me an opening, a small moment in which I could have stepped into her life, and I hesitated. The hunger punished me for that hesitation. When I returned to the room tonight, they were furious. The air was thick with their disappointment. Their faces seemed sharper in the candlelight, the shadows beneath their eyes deeper, their mouths twisted into silent accusation. I begged their forgiveness. I told them the time was not yet right, that rushing would have ruined everything. But they did not listen. They want her. They want her now. And I fear if I delay too long, they will turn against me. I sat among them for hours, trembling, staring into their fixed gazes until my vision blurred. I pressed my hands to my face, feeling the sweat gather at my temples, the heat rising behind my eyes. I whispered that I would not fail them, that I could never fail them. But the truth is, I am afraid. Not of her, not of the act itself. Those fears died long ago. No, what frightens me is the possibility of imperfection. What if the moment slips from me? What if the preservation falters? What if I lose her before she is truly mine? I cannot bear that thought. So I plan, and plan again. Tomorrow, I will test the locks on the basement door once more. I will make sure the cloths are clean, the candles plentiful, the tools sharpened. I will stand in the center of the room and imagine her there. Imagine her eyes wide at first, then calm, then silent forever. The ritual must be flawless. I find myself writing her name over and over in the margins of these pages. It feels dangerous to put it here, to trap it in ink, but I cannot stop. Each letter is a promise, a spell binding her to me. Soon the letters will no longer be enough. I dreamed again last night. In the dream, she stood at the threshold of the room, the red scarf trailing from her neck like a banner. She smiled at me, not with fear, but with recognition, as if she had always known she belonged here. I held out my hand, and she took it without hesitation. The collection stirred around us, their faces glowing in the candlelight, their whispers rising into a chorus of approval. When I woke, the sheets were damp with sweat, and my hands ached from clutching the air too tightly. The hunger will not wait much longer, and neither will I. Tomorrow may be the day, or perhaps the day after. But soon, very soon, I can already hear the silence that will fall when she finally joins us. The silence of completion, of harmony, of a puzzle finding its missing piece. The others will forgive me then. They will see that I have not abandoned them, but honored them with another perfect companion. And she will see too. She must. I knew the moment had come the instant I opened my eyes this morning. There was no hesitation, no gnawing doubt, no whisper of delay. The hunger had sharpened itself into something precise, something surgical. My hands were steady when I tied my laces, steady when I buttoned my coat. Even the rain outside seemed to fall with a kind of rhythm, as though the sky itself beat a drum for me. I told them before I left. I lit the candles around the room, let the shadows flicker across their faces, and I whispered, "Today." Their silence was heavy, expectant, like the pause before a final note. I promised them I would not return empty-handed. And so I followed her. The bus was crowded, damp with the smell of wool and rainwater. She sat where she always does, scarf wound tight around her throat, the window fogged from her breath. I stood 2 rows behind, close enough to hear the faint creak of her seat as the bus jolted along. She never looked back, but I felt her awareness all the same. The way she shifted slightly, as though sensing a draft that wasn't there. The way her hand tugged at the scarf again and again, higher, tighter, until it seemed almost to choke her. I smiled. The city blurred past. The office, the hours, the pale glow of lamps on wet pavement, all of it just steps in the ritual. I knew where she would go, and I knew how the evening would end. She left work later than usual, umbrella forgotten, the scarf dark with rain. The streets were empty, the storm drowning every sound but my footsteps. She walked quickly, head bent, keys clenched tight in her fist. I let her turn down the quieter street before I followed. The shadows welcomed me. The lamps flickered, and the puddles swallowed her reflection. Each step carried me closer until the air between us vibrated with anticipation. She paused, as she always does, at the corner, tugging at the scarf with one trembling hand. This time, though, she did not move on. She stood still, listening, and I knew she knew. That was the moment. The hunger swelled, filling my chest, my throat, my eyes until I could hardly see for the burning need. The world narrowed to her alone. The curve of her cheek, the glisten of rain in her hair, the fragile flutter of her pulse beneath the scarf. I stepped forward. She turned. Our eyes met, truly met, for the first time. And in that instant, I saw her recognize me. Not as a stranger, not as a shadow, but as something inevitable. The rest unfolded as it always must. I will not write the details here. Some things belong only to memory, to the private communion between us. But know this, it was perfect. More perfect than I dared hope. Her resistance was brief, her silence eternal. And when at last she lay still, the hunger inside me stilled with her. I carried her through the rain, careful, reverent, as though bearing a sacred relic. The city paid no mind. The storm hid everything. By the time I reached the house, my arms ached, but my resolve did not falter. They were waiting. The candles flickered wildly as I entered the room, their flames bending toward us as if in worship. The faces seemed to lean closer, their eyes alive with anticipation. I laid her gently in the center, her scarf slipping loose at last, and for a moment I simply stood there, trembling, unable to breathe. Then the ritual began. I moved with precision, with patience, with love. Every step exact, every gesture deliberate. I whispered to her as I worked, telling her she was safe now, telling her she would never be forgotten, telling her she was finally home. When it was done, I stepped back and let the candlelight fall across her. She was exquisite. The others seemed to glow with approval. Their silence was no longer accusing but proud, like parents watching a child come of age. I felt their warmth envelop me, felt the hunger dissolve into something deeper, contentment, completion. I sat with her for hours, just staring, memorizing every detail. The hollows of her cheeks, the curve of her lips, the stillness of her gaze. I touched her once, lightly, my fingers brushing the coolness of her skin, and I thought, this is eternity. At last, I placed her among the others. She fit perfectly, as though she had always belonged. And in that moment, I knew the collection was whole again. But even as I write these words, even as the ink dries on the page, I feel a stirring in the silence. Not hunger, not yet. Something else. A whisper of possibility. A reminder that perfection never lasts. And I wonder, will they ever be satisfied? Will I? The room is not the same anymore. I sit here, pen scratching against paper, and the air feels thicker than it did before. The candles sputter as though suffocated, their smoke curling in shapes I cannot quite name. I thought her presence would bring peace, harmony, the silence of completion. Instead, the silence feels heavier, accusing. She stares at me. Of course, they all stare at me. They always have. But hers is different. There is a sharpness to her gaze, a depth the others do not possess. I placed her carefully, lovingly, in the center of them all, yet I cannot sit without feeling her eyes burning through me. Sometimes I think she blinks. I know that is impossible. And yet, when I close my eyes, I see her lids flutter, just once, quick as the twitch of a dream. I tell myself it is imagination, but the certainty lingers like a thorn. The hunger should be gone. That is what always happens. After each one, I feel the stillness, the sacred quiet. But this time, no. This time, the hunger coils at the edges of me, whispering, gnawing, restless. Why? I gave them what they wanted. I gave myself what I wanted. She is perfect, every line of her preserved, every shadow caught in its rightful place. And yet, when I look at her, I feel not peace but need. It grows worse at night. The dreams come more often now, heavy and vivid. I see her walking through the streets again, scarf trailing behind her, but when I call to her, she does not turn. She walks faster, farther, always just beyond my reach. And when I run to catch her, the city twists and folds, carrying her away like water slipping through my fingers. I wake with my throat raw from whispering her name. The others have changed as well. Their silence no longer comforts me. It vibrates, hums, presses against my skull. Sometimes I hear them sigh, the faintest stir of breath where there should be none. Other times, the corners of their mouths seem to twitch, as though about to speak, only to freeze again when I look directly at them. I find myself speaking aloud more often now, begging them for patience, for reassurance. But their silence only deepens. And then last night I heard her. Not them, her. The voice came soft, low, curling through the dark like smoke. At first I thought it was the echo of my dream, but when I opened my eyes, I swore her lips had parted. She whispered one word, again. My pen shakes even as I write it. The ink runs too dark, pooling at the edges of the letters, but I cannot stop. Again, that is what she said. That is what she demands. Does she mean I must find another? That my work is not finished? That one face is never enough? Or does she mean something else? The thought chills me. What if she does not wish to remain here, among them, silent and still? What if she wishes to walk again, to breathe again, to take from me what I have taken from her? I do not know which terrifies me more. Today I avoided the bus. I could not bear the sight of strangers' faces, their eyes glancing over me, their mouths curling into shapes I could never keep. Each one seemed to mock me, as though they knew what I carried inside me. I stayed here with them, with her, but it did not help. She still stares. The scarf lies folded at her side, darkened and stiff from the rain, and sometimes I imagine it moving, curling upward like a serpent toward my throat. I tell myself it is only the draft, the flutter of candlelight. Yet I cannot shake the image of it tightening around me, pulling me into silence beside her. I have begun to dread the nights. The whispers grow louder in the dark. The others murmur, restless, their silence breaking into fragments of sound I cannot decipher. And over it all, her voice repeats the same word, over and over, until I feel it grinding against my teeth. Again, again, again. I cannot write much longer. My hand cramps, my vision blurs. I stare too long at the page, and the letters writhe like insects, crawling toward the margins, spelling words I did not write. The hunger claws at me from within. My chest aches with it, my pulse hammers against my ribs, and I know, it will not stop until I obey. But what if obedience is the trap? What if the collection no longer serves me but consumes me? I do not know which is worse, to give in and feel the hunger sharpen again tomorrow, or to resist and face her endless gaze, her endless whispering. I am trapped either way, and still, even as my hand trembles, even as the candle burns low, I think of the faces outside, on the bus, in the streets, in the cafes where no one looks at anyone else for more than a moment. So many faces, all of them fleeting, all of them waiting to be kept. She is right. It must happen again, soon.